I never imagined my marriage would feel so silent, so predictable, so heavy with unspoken words. From the outside, people thought I had it all: a stable husband, a comfortable home, a life that looked picture perfect. But inside, I carried a loneliness I could never put into words. My husband wasn't cruel, he wasn't abusive, he was simply absent in ways that mattered to me the most. His attention was always tied to his work, his phone, or his own exhaustion. When I tried to talk, he nodded without really listening. When I tried to reach out at night, he turned away, too tired, too distracted. I started to feel invisible, like a ghost living in my own marriage. I told myself this was normal, that this is what happens when years pass and love turns into habit. But the truth is, I was starving for something deeper. I wanted to be seen, to be desired, to feel like a woman again, not just a partner who shared bills and chores. There were days I stood in front of the mirror, asking myself where that spark in my eyes had gone. I was only in my 30s, yet I felt decades older because the warmth that once lit my marriage had burned out to cold ashes. It was around this time that he entered my life. He wasn't just anyone, he was someone I had seen before, someone familiar, yet I had never looked at him the way I began to now. He carried himself with confidence, a natural ease that made people turn their heads without him even trying. There was something raw, magnetic, and quietly commanding about him. The first few conversations we had were casual, harmless, even talking about simple things, exchanging polite smiles. But each time, I noticed the way his eyes lingered just a little too long, the way his voice dropped slightly when he spoke to me. It wasn't overt, but it was enough to make me feel alive, like someone had finally noticed me again. The more I tried to brush it off, the more it pulled me in. Every compliment he gave landed with a weight I wasn't used to anymore. My husband hadn't told me I looked beautiful in years, but here was a man who noticed the color of my dress, the way I styled my hair, even the scent I wore. Those details mattered to him, and suddenly, they mattered to me too. I found myself spending extra time getting ready, hoping he would notice, hoping he would look at me the way he always did. At night, lying beside my husband, I felt a quiet shame pressing into my chest. Why did I crave another man's attention so badly? Why did it feel like oxygen after drowning for so long? I couldn't stop replaying his voice in my head, the way his laughter stirred something deep inside me. The boundary between harmless attention and dangerous temptation blurred faster than I expected. I kept telling myself I wouldn't cross any lines, that this was just a harmless reminder that I was still a woman worthy of desire. But deep down, I knew it was more than that. It was a pull I hadn't felt in years, a stirring of emotions I thought were long gone. I didn't act on it, not yet, but when his hand brushed against mine for the first time, I felt an undeniable current, a spark that made my heart race in ways I could no longer ignore. That night, for the first time in years, I didn't fall asleep feeling numb. I fell asleep with a secret, with a flutter in my chest, and with the terrifying realization that something inside me had been awakened, something I wasn't sure I could control. The days that followed became a dangerous blur of moments I pretended not to notice but secretly craved. I told myself to keep my distance, but somehow, he was always there. A simple errand, a casual meeting, even a quick exchange of words felt charged with something unspoken. It was in the way his eyes held mine longer than necessary, how his smile curved as if he knew the effect he had on me. I could feel it every time, the heat rising in my cheeks, the quickening of my breath, the undeniable ache of wanting something I shouldn't. At first, I tried to convince myself that it was nothing, that I was imagining the tension. But the truth revealed itself in the smallest gestures. He leaned in closer when he spoke, his voice low, intimate, as though every word was meant only for me. Once, when I reached for a folder, his hand brushed over mine, firm and deliberate, and the look in his eyes made it clear it wasn't an accident. My stomach twisted with guilt, but my body betrayed me. I wanted more. At home, the contrast became unbearable. My husband would sit across the room, scrolling through his phone, asking me questions without ever looking up. He was there, yet not really there. His indifference made the memory of the other man's attention even more intoxicating. I started to compare them in ways I didn't want to admit. My husband's words felt flat, while the other man's every comment felt layered with meaning. My husband barely noticed the new dress I bought, But when the other man saw me in it, his eyes darkened, and he whispered, "You look incredible." That single sentence replayed in my mind more times than I wanted to count. It was subtle at first, this shift between us, but it grew with every stolen glance, every smile that lingered too long. One evening, when I was feeling particularly restless, he walked me to my car. The night was quiet, the air heavy, and as I fumbled for my keys, he stepped closer, so close that I could feel the warmth radiating from his body. My pulse raced, my thoughts screamed at me to step back, to put space between us. But I didn't move. I couldn't. His hand brushed against mine again, and this time, neither of us pretended it was by chance. I told myself it was still innocent, that no real line had been crossed yet. But deep down, I knew better. My body leaned toward him instinctively, my heart pounded with a thrill I hadn't felt in years. It wasn't just attraction anymore. It was temptation, sharp, undeniable, dangerous. That night, I couldn't sleep. I lay in bed beside my husband, his back turned to me as always, and stared into the darkness, replaying every detail. The closeness, the touch, the way his presence filled the empty spaces inside me. I felt guilty, but the guilt was tangled with something far stronger, a hunger that refused to die down. I knew I was standing on the edge of a line I had no business crossing. But I also knew, with terrifying certainty, that I was already too far gone to turn back. It happened on a night that started like any other, but ended with a choice I could never take back. My husband had left on a late shift, and the house felt unbearably quiet. I poured myself a glass of wine, telling myself I just wanted to unwind, but deep down I knew the silence was too much for me to handle. When my phone buzzed and I saw his name, my heart skipped. He wasn't asking for much, just if I was home, just if I wanted company. I hesitated for only a moment before typing back a simple yes. When he arrived, there was no grand plan, no rehearsed words. He stepped inside, and the air seemed to change immediately. He looked at me in a way that stripped away every excuse, every defense I thought I had. My body reacted before my mind could catch up. I offered him a drink, but we both knew that wasn't why he was there. The tension between us had been simmering for weeks, and now it was about to spill over. He stood close, too close, his presence filling every inch of space around me. I could feel his breath, hear the steady rhythm of it, and when his hand finally touched mine, I didn't pull away. Instead, I leaned into it, craving more. The first kiss was tentative, almost questioning, but once our lips met, there was no going back. It deepened quickly, urgent and hungry, as though we had both been waiting far too long for this. Every thought of guilt blurred as his hands traced along my body, pulling me closer, grounding me in a storm I didn't want to escape. I should have stopped him. I should have remembered my vows, my promises, the life I was risking. But in that moment, all I could think about was how alive I felt, how his touch ignited something inside me that had been cold for years. When I finally saw him fully, the words echoed in my head before I could stop them. His tool was too big, I had to use both hands. It wasn't just the shock of him, it was the intensity of it, the overwhelming sense of being consumed by something I couldn't control. It scared me, but it thrilled me too. My body responded with a desperation I hadn't felt in so long, and with each movement, I let go of every restraint I had been holding onto. The world outside that room disappeared. There was no husband, no marriage, no consequences, only the rush of forbidden passion. Every touch, every kiss, every sound seemed amplified, raw, and reckless. I knew I was crossing a line I could never uncross, but I didn't stop. I didn't want to stop. When it was finally over, the silence returned, heavy and thick, but it wasn't the same as before. I lay there, my body trembling, my mind racing, the taste of him still on my lips. The weight of what I had done pressed down on me, but so did the undeniable truth I had wanted it, and I had surrendered to it fully. As he left, he gave me a look that said everything and nothing at once. Part of me wanted him to stay, to hold me, to make sense of the chaos we had just created. But another part of me was grateful when the door closed behind him. I was left alone with my thoughts, my guilt, and the haunting memory of a night that had changed everything. The morning after felt unreal, as though I had dreamed the entire night. But the faint scent of him on my skin, the soreness I carried, The way my reflection looked different in the mirror, it was all too real. I stared at myself, unable to recognize the woman looking back. My lips were swollen, my eyes heavy, and beneath the surface there was a guilt so sharp it almost hurt to breathe. I tried to act normal when my husband came home, but my body betrayed me. Every word he spoke felt like an accusation, every glance like suspicion. He asked about my evening, casually, and I forced a smile, saying I'd gone to bed early. He accepted it without hesitation, but his indifference only made it worse. Here I was, drowning in guilt, while he didn't even notice a shift in the air. It was almost as though my betrayal didn't matter, because to him, I had been invisible long before last night. The other man, though, noticed everything. He texted me the next day, just one message: "I can't stop thinking about you." My heart raced at the sight of it, but so did my shame. I typed and deleted replies over and over, torn between the rush of his attention and the crushing weight of what it meant. When I finally answered, my fingers trembled. I didn't tell him to stop. I didn't tell him it was a mistake. Instead, I let the conversation flow, knowing each word tied me tighter to him. Days turned into weeks, and I lived two lives. By day, I was the wife, cooking dinner, folding laundry, smiling at family gatherings. By night, or in secret stolen hours, I was someone else, reckless, passionate, alive. The guilt never went away, but neither did the hunger. Every time I promised myself it was the last time, he'd touch me again, and I'd crumble. His presence filled the emptiness my husband never seemed to notice. But secrets have a way of seeping through cracks. One evening, while we sat at the dinner table, my husband looked at me differently. His fork paused midair, his eyes narrowing as though he was searching for something on my face. "You've seemed distracted lately," he said. The words sent a chill down my spine. I laughed it off, brushing his concern aside, but inside I panicked. Could he tell? Could he see the truth written all over me? That night I lay awake, torn apart by two truths. One was that I loved my husband in some quiet, habitual way. The other was that I couldn't let go of the man who had awakened something inside me. I had traded loyalty for passion, stability for fire, and now I was trapped between them. In the end, I realized there was no easy choice. Infidelity isn't just an act, it's a wound, one that festers and spreads long after the moment has passed. I had gotten what I thought I wanted: to feel alive, to be desired, to remember what passion tasted like. But it came at a cost I couldn't escape. I had crossed a line that could never be erased. As I lay in bed, my husband's back turned to me as always, I whispered the truth to myself in the dark. I had betrayed him. I had betrayed myself. And no matter what happened next, I would carry the memory of that night, the night his tool was too big, and I needed both hands, not just in my body, but in the deepest corners of my conscience. Because passion fades, but guilt has a way of staying forever.